Welcome to Alpha Bites, where we serve up bite-sized insights to help you grow your business and your bank account. Our host, Alex Zinni, CEO of Alpha Key Digital, dives into the latest marketing trends, proven strategies, and actionable tips to scale your online presence. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, Alpha Bites delivers the keys to unlocking your success. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Zinni, your host of Alpha Bites, where I sit down with inspiring business leaders and entrepreneurs to dive into what drives them and uncover the secrets behind their success. First, this episode is brought to you by Alpha Key Digital, where we specialize in delivering measurable digital marketing results. Our latest success story? We helped a mid-seven-figure electrician company slash their cost per conversion on Google Ads from $21.50 to just $9.50. The expertise in tweaking what was in Google and the landing page optimizations made all the difference. So if you're ready to elevate your business and achieve game-changing results, then visit alphakeydigital.com/contact and book an introductory call with a member from our team. We'd love to hear from you. I want to give a special shout out to Mast Roofing and Construction located in Olay, Pennsylvania. They're a family-owned and operated business that we have the pleasure of serving. Check out their website at mastsroofing.com and pay them a visit. If you're in the area, you're not going to find a better company for roofing and gutters and siding. They're awesome. I also want to give a quick shout out to the Willoughby Western Lake County Chamber of Commerce, where I met today's guest many years ago, almost 10 years ago. Today we have Bill Snow. Bill Snow is a corporate guy turned small business owner who connected his passions for people and cars into a few different automotive endeavors. He's a shop owner. He helps entrepreneurs open auto shops of their own. He hosts a podcast, and he's always playing with race cars and he's driving fast. When he's not near a car, you'll find him hanging with family or enjoying the outdoors. I'm very excited to welcome Bill. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Alex. It's great to be on here. And you know what? I can't believe it's been 10 years since we met at the chamber, and look where we are now.
Yeah, it's awesome. The Chambers of Commerce, for those listening, your local Chamber of Commerce is a great place to meet people where I met Bill. And I'm just so grateful to know you. And I just want to dive right into it. So from corporate to cars, what originally fueled that transition, Bill? I mean, you were in a corporate environment and you leapt into small business ownership. What was that like?
Yeah, while I was working on my MBA, I was developing a business plan, and it had nothing to do with our coursework. But I was developing a business plan for a automotive enthusiast type business. It would be a place where car enthusiasts could hang out. They could work on their cars together by themselves and really build a sense of community. But I never wanted to take the risk of leaving the corporate life to open up that business. And my wife and our two daughters were on a family vacation. We were driving my wife's car down to North Carolina, and an hour from the beach, her vehicle started to overheat. And, I did a couple of fixes and it got us a little bit further, but we ended up having to get towed to the condo where we were staying at. And, we found a great shop in town, and they fixed it, and they told us what the problem was. And the problem was that somebody had added the wrong antifreeze to our car at some point during its life, and it turned the coolant, some people know it as antifreeze, to Jello.
Oh.
So my wife and I are sitting on the beach, and I tell her, if poor car care is happening to us, it's happening to more people. I think when we get back to Cleveland, we're going to dust off that business plan. We're going to make it more consumer focused, general auto repair focused. That was 2012, and it took me 2 years to get that plan developed. I looked at dozens of shops for sale, and then through that process, I actually met up with the Rad Air Complete Car Care folks, and we really hit it off. And I didn't think I was going to go the franchise route, but the more we talked, we had a lot of similarities in how we approach business, the transparency, the honest approach that we have. And I thought, you know what, this makes sense to, start working with them. And they had, I opened up a facility in Wickliffe, and they had the relationship with the owners of that shop that wanted to sell the shop, and they wanted to move on to other parts of their life. And Rad Air wanted it to become a Rad Air location. So it all worked out. And actually, my parents' first house was in Wickliffe. So it's kind of like a little bit of a coming back to the neighborhood type thing.
That's amazing. And you run a very tight shop over there. And you also get cookies too, which I love. You know, when you go there, you get a bag of cookies, and that's always nice. I totally relate when you were saying about how you saw a need in the market and you wanted to fill that need, and that need was taking care of people, being honest. You know, when your car goes back into the shop, you never, you know, for someone like me, I don't know what they're doing back there, right? And it's really easy, I feel like, for it to become, you know, something that isn't honest. So the consumers like me, we really appreciate it because I am not able to even change the oil in my car. I'm sad to say I'm going to have to change that. But when were you always passionate about cars? Like, I know you have a racing background and you like to race, but when was the first time that you really fell in love with cars in general?
My parents joke that it was the summer of 72, even before I was born. My parents went to a race at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. My mother was pregnant with me, and she was smelling all the fumes and the roar of the engines. She said she could, that was probably where it was first instilled in me. But one of the earliest memories I have was in the late 70s. My father had an MGB convertible, and I can remember driving around with him, going to the dealership with him, and that's really where I started to get an idea of, hey, these things are cool. These cars, how do they work? And people at the dealership, sort of like paid a little bit of attention to me when he would take it up there for service. And my dad, always had some sort of sports car or cool car. He was always going to car shows, and we were always going to races. And um, it was around that time that he also opened up an automotive related business. They did rust proofing and they installed air conditioning into cars, car stereos and alarms back then. And I always thought I'd work for the family business, but like me, my father was involved in corporate life, had those businesses as a side hustle. He ended up having to work on them for a few years before he could sell them and then go back to corporate life. So I never got the chance to work for the family automotive business, but everything comes full circle. And that's really how cars became a big part of my life.
So yeah, it was pre-womb. I mean, that really
Yeah.
goes back. Wow. And I think that there's something to that too, because when you're such a kid and impressionable, I know for me, I fell in love with music at a young age, and I grabbed a little tennis racket when I was like 4, watching the Beatles on TV, and was just like pretending to play. You know, so we have, as kids, I feel like we have those passions, and it's something we have to keep with us. So it's really cool that you turn that into, your business and livelihood. Really.
Yeah.
So when I want to go back to when you were saying you were first starting out, you were looking at shops, looking at different ways to get into the business, and then you settled on this franchise model. What were some like unexpected hurdles along the way that stuck out to you as you were, bringing this vision into reality?
Yeah, in looking at so there's two approaches. I was working with business brokers, and a couple of those business brokers had relationships with commercial real estate folks. So these business brokers would take me to shops that were for sale, and I would meet with the business owner and a lot of times their wife or spouse, and the businesses really weren't ready to be sold.
Mm.
The books weren't in order. The business was actually in a failing state. I looked at a lot of those, and then I looked at a lot of empty buildings that were once automotive repair businesses, or a real estate person trying to convince me that it could be an automotive repair business with a bunch of investments. So what really surprised me about that is, business owners that weren't very structured, business owners that weren't very consistent with bookkeeping, record keeping, and things like that. The sad part of that is I probably missed out on an opportunity, but they also missed out on an opportunity to sell their business. And a couple of those people I kept in touch with. They got their business where it needed to be and actually sold it to someone else because I had already landed here. The other thing too is the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people.
Mhm.
I had some of the right people around me at that time, but I also had some of the wrong people around me at that time that, they didn't con me out of anything. They didn't give me bad advice, but they might not have been the best person I could have had in that. There's a big lesson there. We talk about who's in your room, who's at your table, some people say, and it's really, you have to surround yourself with the people that are going to support you, give you the best advice. Sometimes you have to pay for that. So you might say, hey, my buddy's a lawyer. I'm going to have him advise me on this. But if he's not a commercial real estate lawyer and you're negotiating or, looking at something, they're probably not the best person to help you. Spend the money, make sure the right person is on your team. And then the other thing too is what surprised me is just how easy it is that you could take the leap and leave corporate life. The way I say it today is you'll never steal second base without first taking your foot off first.
Mhm.
When you think about it that way, you have to take the risk. And sometimes you'll be thrown out at second, but other times you'll make it to second base.
Yeah.
So think, just, kind of be thinking about that if I found the right building, the right business, am I ready to really make the leap and be all in?
It sounds like you really prepared and really did your homework before you got into it. How walk me through what that process was like. Were you watching YouTube videos? Were you hiring coaches? Were you reading financial statements from successful shops? Or how were you learning how to do this?
A few things. So number one was schooling. My undergrad is in marketing. And then my MBA work was actually in consulting, and through all the coursework, whether it was undergrad or graduate work, there was always a focus on operating a business, growing a business, and certainly leadership and the financial stuff. And some of the folks I graduated with, we still joke around that, man, we didn't really realize how much we would need accounting and finance. We always thought we'd pay people to do that for us, but it's important to understand that.
Mhm.
The other was a lot of web research. Just looking at, understanding what's going on in the marketplace, a lot of networking.
Mhm.
And so when I had the original business plan for what I call an enthusiast business, I tried to meet and network with everybody I could, insurance people, different bankers. They would lead me to people that were involved in the parts business of what we're doing. Every time I met with someone, they helped me refine that original business plan. I got connected with state legislators that, of course, they have a great network, so they're interested in, a new business owner doing something, but then also connecting me with folks. But the center of that was networking and just
Mhm.
bouncing the idea off of a lot of people. And then researching competitors, looking at their websites, looking where people had done this before. Where is there a gap in the marketplace? We didn't, although podcasts were out and YouTube is out, it didn't seem like there was a ton of content available I can listen to. It's everywhere now. So yeah, do a little bit of reading, a little bit of research, do a lot of networking. It's amazing how much people will help you when you ask them for their insights and their time and their advice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And being a business owner, you have to be a lifelong learner. When you said about the finances, I had to laugh because even for our own business, moving from cash to accrual basis accounting, and I have to learn what that even means. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you got to learn these things. And I was too marketing, I took marketing courses in college and business courses, and the finance ones were always the ones I was like, you can just give that to the accountants over there. But you have to know it. And I like what you said about networking too, as such a driving force for your start of your business and the growth of your business and where you're at now with your podcast and the expansion. What's something that you've learned about networking that might not be obvious to people?
There's probably two things. The first is you have to do it, and you have to do it consistently, and that's one thing. So it's one thing to just go and say, I'm going to do one chamber event this month, maybe take a month off and then do another one. Maybe I find this event at the library I'm going to go and do. You have to network consistently, because that's the only way that people are going to understand what you're doing. But more importantly, you're going to learn to craft your message. You're going to learn how to conduct yourself. You're going to learn how to make your presence at these events the best that they can be. But the other part too is making the decision of where and where not to network. So as you network more, you're going to realize where you get the most value and perhaps where you don't. And most entrepreneurs, you want to say yes to everything. You want to be everywhere. You have the fear of missing out. What if I miss out on an opportunity to make a sale? And you don't make sales at networking opportunities, but you can do things that could lead to sales.
Mhm.
You have to budget your time effectively. And that was the second. And I probably learned that the most last year,
Mhm.
as I realized there was a lot of networking events I was going to. I saw a lot of people I like, saw a lot of people I got to catch up with, but it wasn't helping me reach any of my goals. And
Mhm.
so now you just have to say no to those. So do it consistently, number one. And then number two, just make sure that you're doing the right events.
And that's so crucial too. And for people just starting out, like I was kind of thrown into networking scenarios because I was working for a chamber of commerce, here in Willoughby. And I didn't really know much about networking, but I learned so much watching, individuals like you and other people at the chamber, who really they knew how to show up and get their message across, but not in like a pushy way, in a way
Yeah.
that's like forcing, like not forcing anything, but being just relationship driven, devoting your time. And then I'm a firm believer that what you put out comes back to you. And if you're putting out, friendly, win-win, helpful type energy, then that will come back to you. Before we started the recording this podcast, we were talking a little about a bit about some regrets that you had and in business. So what would you say, Bill, is one of the bigger regrets that you've had when it comes to your business?
The biggest that stands out is just not doing it sooner. You know, sometimes you can't do it or you don't think you can do it because of certain constraints in your life. You might say, well, the kids are young. Let me wait till that. You know what? I'm working on this one really big project at work. Let me wait till after that. Well, the economy doesn't know what's happening right now. Let me wait to see. Let me wait till the election. All these things, you're just kicking the can. You're procrastinating. If you believe in your heart and your gut that this is what you ought to be doing, then just do it. Um, there's lots of people that are watching this and listening to it that are probably thinking, I want to do it, but they never do.
Mhm.
And you got to make the decision. And I, I will tell you, I am very risk adverse in most things, and leaving corporate life to go and open up an automotive repair business, that was a huge risk. And I did it when my kids were in junior high and high school. Um, there's a lot of stuff you have to be doing with your kids, and we do kids stuff with your kids all the time. But a lot of athletic activities, things getting ready for college, and I think of those late nights, those weekends where I was just stuck at the shop. I wish I would have done it sooner. Gotten it out of the way, got the business to where it can run itself, and I could step away and be that true business owner. So if someone listening to this says, I want to change that from I'm going to I am, and get off the couch and start doing it.
I love that. And that's so true, right? The time to do something is now. The amount of individuals I've met who have had business plans and ideas and all these things, and then years go by and they haven't started or they haven't done that thing. And I think it eats away too in your mind. You think, I should have started that business. I should have done that. And you can avoid all that if you just do it now and take that first step. So I love that.
Yeah. And if you don't do it and you wait another year, look back and say, well, where could I have been if I had done it?
Mhm.
Um, and if it is going to fail, let's just do it. Let's see if it's going to fail, and then learn from that and
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah, and give it time too. I love this Tony Robbins quote where he says, people way overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, but way underestimate what they can accomplish in five, And it's like, it's not a quick thing, but every little stepping stone leads to something greater. And being risk averse, it's tough because I'm also similarly risk averse, but it can also hold you back. So how do you deal with the thoughts in your brain that are like, okay, this is too risky. I don't want to make this business decision. But the other party that says, I think we need to do this. How do you come to those decisions?
One is, is it a time risk? Is it a financial risk? And then you really say, well, if it does fail and it's financial, can I afford to let this happen? But the flip side is, if I don't do it, what happens?
Mhm.
And in our business, we had to make some investments in some equipment, and it was more money than I wanted to spend, but I know that we needed to do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to service cars as efficiently as we needed to. We would lose out on a certain amount of business. And, you know, we're 2.5 years into that decision, and it still hasn't paid for itself,
Mhm.
but we're on the right path to get it to pay for it. So, it's really sitting down and making an analysis of, okay, you know, and as an entrepreneur, oh, which is the assumption of risk, right? And we're talking about being risk adverse, but entrepreneurs, you have to start to trust your gut. And is this going to work? Is it not going to work? And am I going to be feeling left out if I say no?
Mm-hmm.
But the more decisions you make as a business owner, good or bad, the more comfortable you get with saying no to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe it would have been successful, but if it's not going to be crazy successful, then maybe there is something that you need to be looking at that will be crazy successful and focus on that.
Absolutely. And that's such great advice too. Learning what to say no to is so important, especially when it comes to budgeting our time, because we only have so much of that and you can't outsource your time necessarily. And you need to be able to find that balance. I mean, how do you, Bill? I know you have a lot of really awesome things going on, vibrant family and thriving business. How do you find the time to balance all of these, the multiple businesses, hosting a podcast, how do you find balance?
When I find it, we'll record another episode. It's almost like whack-a-mole at times, and which can be very frustrating as well, because just whatever's popping up might not be the most important thing that you need to deal with at that time. But I've really been trying to get better at where the focus is. So we mentioned about saying no to some networking events. Well, I'm lucky enough to have a team as part of the Rad Air organization at the shop that as something comes up, I realize, that's not for me to handle. I have a team that can handle that. So let me show you how it should be done. Let me tell you how I'd like it done and have them do it. There's gonna be times that they probably mess that up. It's not catastrophic. We're not delivering babies here. Mm-hmm. And the more they get comfortable with that level of responsibility and executing some important tasks, the more that they'll take on, which then frees up a leader's time to focus in on the big things that matter. Mm-hmm. But it can be tough because, the wife wants to spend time. Some of our business isn't 8 to 5. We're involved in franchise development. I was looking at a building with a potential franchisee last night and then had a conference call with a sports car club after that. So, you do that, but then you hope that tonight, great, the phone gets shut off and my wife will have my full attention. The other is just brutal use of a calendar, just blocking things off, making sure you're scheduling, the date nights and when we're doing dinner with family and the daughters and stuff like that. But balance is a good word. I recently heard this great, almost analogy. I was telling somebody that keeping balls in the air like a juggler. Mm-hmm. They said, you can drop balls, just don't drop the glass ones, which are the important ones. So as long as you keep the important ones up and the non-important ones drop, you're still okay. So I've been thinking a lot about that saying as well.
That's an interesting analogy, and I really like that too, because some of those, there are things that are extremely important that can't be ignored for business owners, no matter what. And being a business owner, you have more responsibility than the average person, and it's just in the workforce, and delegating, knowing what to delegate, what not to delegate, what's important, what isn't. One of the things that's really helped me is I think it was Stephen Covey's book, The Principles of Business. And he has a quadrant, and I hope I'm not butchering this, but there's a quadrant on there, and it's listed as urgent, not urgent, important, not important. And in these 4 quadrants, there are things that are urgent and important, which they need to get done. Urgent, not important, which those are the things we tend to neglect in our business because it's important that we do them. It's urgent that we do them, but it's not necessarily important. Actually, I think it's split. It's important, but not urgent. So sorry, that's me butchering it there. It's the important, but not urgent stuff that we need to focus on. That's business development, really. Mm-hmm. That stuff that's important, but not urgent is business development where I try to spend more time. And it's difficult to find that balance. And I know that one day there'll be balance, but we'll shoot that podcast. We'll get on our calendar for 2032.
Yeah, probably
somewhere around then we'll reconvene there. But I want to take a quick second to say, for those who are listening, I do have one more question for Bill. But before I ask it, I want to point people to your website at radair.com. That's RADAIR.com. Is there any way, Bill, that people could get in touch with you too if they're interested in franchising or learning more about your business? Where can they reach you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best. if they do go to radair.com and they find the franchising section, there's actually a quick form to fill out that comes right to me. But if you look up Bill Snow, Rad Air on LinkedIn, let's connect. Let's talk a little bit. I love talking franchising, whether it's automotive or frozen yogurt or spas. I just think the whole idea of franchising is awesome. And I like to connect up with people virtually as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, we'll make sure that we link it in the show notes for everybody to be able to easily find your profile. So you're always playing with race cars. Take me to one of your most memorable racing experiences, and what it taught you about business or just life in general.
Oh man. Okay, I have a good. It's actually two experiences. So to set this up, we have a race team within Rad Air, and it's made up of some employees and some friends of ours. And we endurance race cars. So what that means is that race could be as short as 7 hours. It could be as long as 24 hours. And we do driver changes and we do pit stops and we fix things when they break. And we try to get as many laps in as we can. And we're racing at Pittsburgh International Race Complex, gorgeous facility in Western PA. And it's my turn to drive. And at this point, we have 2 cars. Unfortunately, now we have 5 cars. We race 3 of them. Not all 5 race. Mm-hmm. But I jump into a car that I haven't had a lot of seat time in. I've had seat time in our other car, and they should be very similar. This one is handling horribly. I can't find grip. I enter a corner. The car wants to slide. I end up in the grass. I've never had that happen in any of the cars I've driven. I got very frustrated during that event. I got very mad, and I basically had made the mental decision that I am done with racing. Done with racing. And I think that was on a Saturday. So the events are sometimes 2 days. And I didn't really complain to the team much. I just said, that car just didn't handle like I needed it to. And I don't know if it's me, but maybe my time as a driver is done. I jump into our other car. And that's just the way we stacked up the drivers. And oh my gosh, the car handled like it was on rails. And the car was handling just as I needed it to, just as I remembered it did. I was getting faster and faster as my session went on. And fast forward a year to that complex again, and I'm in that same car that handled poorly, but the guys had made a bunch of changes to it over the off season, and it handled beautifully. And the car did what I wanted to. I set my fastest laps ever at that track and that type of event. And so what the reflection was for me and how it combines back to business is the car 2 years ago wasn't set up like I needed it to. Nobody told me it was not set up like it needed to be, but it didn't have everything it needed to be successful for how I drive. And I wasn't skilled enough to adapt it to handle how I needed it to. I only knew kind of one way to do it. So as we look in our organizations, or we even look at ourselves as we approach business issues, can we approach it differently? Do we need to jump in a different car to execute effectively? Do we need to get advice from somebody else to say, hey, listen, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know how to deal with this situation. Do we need to pull in a professional coach or somebody to help us with assessments? That's what I really took away for that. Being able then to drive a car that handled well, I fell back in love and I said, no, I got many more years of driving. This is what I want to do. And sometimes that's what business owners need. We need that reassurance. We need that good experience. We need that success to remind us that we're doing the right things.
That's a powerful message, Bill, and a beautiful story to end on. And that's a very, very relatable message too. We've all been there where we hated something and loved it again, within a short amount of time. And the lesson is stick with it. And like you said, those are some just great points. Thank you, Bill, for being on the show, sharing your expertise and your knowledge, your stories. Always very inspiring to hear you speak. And I can't wait to hear. I'm going to put another crazy task, but I can't wait to read your book. I know you're not. I don't know if you are writing one or not writing one, but you should write a book. I would read it. I think people would get a lot out of it. As if you need more to do.
Yeah, right.
Thank you for being on the show, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Alpha Bites. If you found today's insights valuable, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with your network. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with us on social media or visit us at alphakeydigital.com/alphabytes. Remember, the keys to your digital success are just a bite away. See you next time.